What the heck is Rejuvelac? In this video, you'll see how it's made and we'll answer some of the top Googled questions about it. It's time to learn and grow together, starting now. For the full recipe and more, check out the link in the description. Rejuvelac is a murky liquid that is created by fermenting grains and water. It's used for its probiotic properties, but is also a great way to add a more realistic flavor to vegan cheeses. Make sure to use well-washed containers and utensils for this recipe, and for additional safety tips, make sure to watch all the way to the Q&A for more information. First, rinse 1/2 cup of quinoa with water using a fine mesh strainer and a coffee filter or cheesecloth. This cleans away the soapinin, a bitter soapy substance that naturally coats the grain to defend it from being eaten in the wild by animals. Once rid of this poisonous coating, place the quinoa in a mason jar. Then, using a rubber band or some string, fasten a coffee filter or some cheesecloth to the top. This will prevent dust from entering the jar while still allowing it to breathe. Roll the jar gently in your hand so that the quinoa can stick to the insides of the jar. Set that jar in a spot out of direct sunlight for 24 to 48 hours. You may rinse your quinoa once or twice daily while you wait for them to sprout. Once little tails have sprouted, it's ready for the next step. Rinse the quinoa with water. I'm going to use the lid of my mason jar to help me strain it out, and then I'm going to rinse it again. Fill the fresh jar with water. You can use tap water, and if you're in the United States, the chlorine inside will kill off helpful microbes. The chlorine can be evaporated by setting your water out overnight. All tap water is different, however, so I'd encourage using filtered drinking or spring water for this. Replace the coffee filter or cheesecloth over the top as we had it before. Now we're going to set this in a dark place for another 24 to 48 hours. Keep checking back to see if Rejuvelac has formed little bubbles amongst the quinoa. You may even notice some of it will begin to float. Strain out the quinoa using a fine mesh strainer and, you guessed it, a coffee filter or a cheesecloth. Put that in a new jar and you may now repeat the process with the old quinoa one more time. Put a date on the top and refrigerate for up to 1 week. Now let's get into answering some of the questions that people are asking online. Question 1. Can Rejuvelac make you sick? And the answer is yes, it definitely can make you sick. That's why it's very important to use clean utensils and clean jars. Smell your Rejuvelac. Does it smell like eggs, rotten eggs, or does it smell like sauerkraut? Both can be bad scents depending on the person, but one is obviously bad, it smells like rot and gross, and one is kind of like pungent and citrusy. So there's a difference. And if you're willing to taste it, taste a little bit of it, and if it's super sour, just get rid of it. It's not worth the risk, just make more. Can you buy Rejuvelac? And the answer is maybe. I did see some information about selling it at farmers markets. It can be sold apparently at room temperatures without refrigeration. Interesting. But I couldn't really find any online listings. I found an Instacart listing, which is like a grocery shopping app for those who didn't know. And that's about it. So a solid maybe. You might be able to buy it, but it's really easy to make, so I just suggest making your own. How much Rejuvelac should I drink? You should drink about 6 ounces a day. So 2 ounces or a 1/4 cup of Rejuvelac before every meal, equaling 6 ounces a day. That's about how much you should drink to help out your digestion. What is it good for? War! What is it good for? I'm really sorry I did that. But it's good for probiotics. It's good for your digestion. It's good to get all that stuff going in your rumbly tumbly. But it's also really good to add flavor to vegan cheeses. And that's kind of why I'm making it. So, yeah, make sure you're subscribed in case, vegan cheese recipe coming up. Can you freeze it? And the answer is yes. Why not? If you can freeze a sourdough starter without killing the culture, you should be able to freeze this without killing the culture. It will dramatically slow down any fermentation process, hopefully to an almost halt, and hopefully it just stays good. I do not have any recommendations for how long to freeze it. Maybe, I don't know, a month or so. I wouldn't keep the stuff around too long. I would just make it fresh and then have a plan for that batch. Or if I know that I was going to drink it for probiotics, I would freeze it in smaller batches. That way I had like a weekly supply or whatever I needed for the time period. Is Rejuvelac safe? And the answer is yes. Everything in me says no, but I guess I'm just not educated enough on fermenting and fermented foods to really know the full answer, the correct answer. Plenty of people make it online and get along just fine. There are some horror stories online of it making people sick and never wanting it again. I don't want that to happen to you, so try not to save it for more than a week. Smell it, taste it, make sure it's good before you use it. But I found out some interesting information. You can use citric acid, so that's what's used to make, like in canning for jams and jellies. And you can adjust the pH to less than or equal to 4.5 to make it more safe, and then continue that process at ambient temperatures, at room temperatures. And the other thing I found is that you could put it in the fridge and do the whole process in the fridge. You can sprout and ferment in the fridge. This slows it down, but to me, as somebody who is sort of a food nerd, a food safety nerd, it just feels better, it feels safer. There's a lot I want to learn about fermentation. That's going to be my goal, to learn a lot more about fermentation so that you guys can learn and grow with me. As long as you're safe and as long as you are very careful, nothing bad should happen. Of course, do this at your own risk. I cannot guarantee that you will be safe following this recipe because I cannot control every factor that's going on. But that's all the information I have for you today. If this video was helpful, if you thought it was interesting, please give it a thumbs up so that it can grow, helping more people. If you're new to the Veggie Nerd, my name is Eric. I'm a vegan chef and I create weekly food content with some occasional nerdy twists. Stick around a while by subscribing and let's empower self-care through food together. I'll put some videos on the screen you can check out, and until next time, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate it, and I'll see you over in the next one.